everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at common English speaking mistakes. And the thing is, even native speakers make these sometimes.
Yeah.
We've got all this research from professors and tips from English tutors and even insights from those YouTubers who specialize in languages.
Right.
So think of this like your ultimate cheat sheet for speaking English more naturally and fluently.
What I think is super interesting is like how many of these mistakes actually come from just translating directly from other languages.
Oh, yeah.
Like our brains are just hardwired, for our native tongue.
Totally.
Even when we're trying to speak something else.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. First up, we've got the lend versus borrow confusion.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've all gotten those mixed up at some point.
Definitely borrow means to take something temporarily, knowing that you'll return it.
Yeah.
And lend means to give something temporarily, but you expect it back.
Okay.
One trick to remember this is to think about which way the object is moving. If it's coming towards you, you're borrowing it.
Oh.
But if it's going away from you, you're lending it.
I like that. It's like a mental compass for words. And then there's that preposition trick, too.
Right.
You lend to someone.
Yeah.
But you borrow from someone.
Prepositions are great. They can be super helpful,
Right.
when you're trying to navigate these tricky word pairs.
Yeah.
They just add an extra layer of, precision to your English.
Okay, next we have the me too versus me either dilemma.
Yeah.
This seems simple, but I've definitely seen it cause some awkward interactions.
It really comes down to whether the statement you're agreeing with is positive or negative.
Right.
So me too is for positive statements.
Oh.
Like if I said, I love chocolate,
Yeah.
you'd be like, me too.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But if I said, I can't stand the traffic,
Right.
then you'd respond, me either.
Okay. So if I said, I'm really excited about this deep dive, you would say,
Me too.
definitely
Yeah.
me too. Haha. I thought so. All right. Now, for a mistake, that might surprise some people.
Wow.
Saying, congratulations for birthdays.
Right.
Is that really a no-go in English?
It's interesting because in some cultures, birthdays are seen as these big achievements.
Yeah.
But in English, congratulations is usually saved for accomplishments,
Oh,
like graduations or promotions.
I see.
Think about it this way. You didn't really do anything to earn your birthday. It just kind of happens.
That's a good point. It's a good reminder to,
Yeah.
think in English rather than translating word for word from our native language. Okay, moving on to a grammar question that even trips up advanced speakers: since versus for.
Oh, this one's all about time.
Okay.
Whether we're talking about duration or a starting point. So for is used for a period of time.
Right.
So you would say, I've been learning English for 5 years.
Yeah.
But since points to a specific time when something began. So I've been learning English since 2018.
So since is marking a point on the timeline.
Yeah,
And for is measuring the length of something on that timeline.
exactly. And since is often used for actions or states that are still going on.
Oh, okay.
Think of that Kelly Clarkson song, Since You've Been Gone.
Yeah.
She's been missing that person ever since they left.
That's a great way to remember it. Okay, up next is a mistake that I've heard quite a bit.
Okay.
Saying eat when talking about medicine.
Oh,
When you actually mean to say take.
so instead of, I eat some painkillers,
Yeah.
it should be, I take some painkillers.
Yes. It seems like a small thing.
Right.
But it can make your English sound so much more natural.
Totally.
And speaking of things that sound a little off, let's talk about the infamous lay versus lie confusion.
Move this one.
Even native speakers get this wrong.
It's a classic. Lay means to place something down.
Okay.
And it always needs an object.
Right.
You lay something down.
Yeah.
Like, please lay the book on the table.
Okay.
But lie means to recline or to rest in a flat position.
Right.
And it doesn't take an object.
Yeah.
You simply lie down.
So you could say, I'm going to lay my phone down and lie down for a bit.
Perfect. You've mastered the lay versus lie distinction. A helpful way to remember this is lay place, lie, recline.
Ooh, I like that mnemonic. Okay, ready for a double negative.
I think so. Hit me with it.
I didn't meet nobody.
Oh, yeah.
I think people are trying to be emphatic,
Right.
but it ends up sounding grammatically incorrect.
In English, two negatives make a positive.
Right.
So I didn't meet nobody actually implies that you did meet somebody.
Haha. Yeah.
The correct way to say it is I didn't meet anybody.
So even though it feels more emphatic,
Yeah.
it changes the whole meaning.
Exactly. It's one of those areas where
Yeah.
our intuition about language doesn't always line up with the rules of grammar.
Okay, and speaking of grammar rules, let's tackle the overuse of the
Yeah.
especially in general statements.
This is another common mistake.
Yeah.
Often. Because in some languages, articles like they are used differently.
Yeah.
But in English, the is for specific things.
Okay.
So you'd say, I love the book you gave me.
Right.
Because you're talking about a specific book.
Yeah.
But if you're making a general statement about books,
Right.
you just say, I love books.
So life is beautiful
Perfect example.
is a correct general statement.
Exactly.
But a lot of English learners would say, the life is beautiful.
Right. And that the is not needed when we're talking about life in general.
Okay, last one for this part of our deep dive. We need to talk about those grammatically creative ways that people express their enjoyment.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, I like so much dogs, or I very like dogs.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm is there.
Yeah.
But the grammar needs a little adjustment.
Right.
The correct way to say this in English is, I really like dogs, or I like dogs so much.
And it can be helpful to have some template sentences in mind.
Yes.
Like, I really like, or I absolutely love, or I think blank are great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Having those go-to phrases can really help make a difference in how
Fluent
and confident you sound when you're speaking English.
All right. That was the whirlwind tour of some of the most common English-speaking mistakes.
Right.
But we're not done yet. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll be uncovering even more tricky word pairs and grammatical nuances. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive on common English-speaking mistakes. It's amazing how these little slip-ups can happen, even when you've been speaking English for a while.
It's true. And what I find so fascinating is that sometimes even small mistakes can totally change what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about before, those double negatives.
Right.
They can completely flip the meaning of a sentence, but it's not always about grammar. Sometimes single words trip people up.
Yeah.
Even when they seem really straightforward.
Right.
Like one pair that comes to mind is say versus tell.
Yeah. Say and tell are both about communicating.
Right.
But tell always has a direct recipient. Okay.
You tell someone something.
Right.
Like my friend told me to watch this movie.
Yeah. But with say, you're just kind of expressing something.
Right.
Whether or not someone's listening, like, I said I wanted pizza, but nobody heard me.
Exactly. And sometimes say is followed by like the actual words that were spoken.
Yeah.
Like my mom always says, don't forget your jacket.
Okay. I think I'm getting the hang of that. Now, what about fun and funny?
Oh, yeah.
Those seem pretty basic, but I've heard them misused.
This is a super common one.
Yeah.
And it often comes down to like mixing up adjectives.
Okay.
So funny describes something that makes you laugh.
Yeah.
Like a joke or a comedian.
Right.
But fun describes something that is like enjoyable.
Okay.
Or entertaining, like a party or a game.
So you wouldn't say, my friend is so funny, we always have a great time.
Right.
You'd say, my friend is so fun.
Yeah.
We always have a great time.
Exactly. You're describing your friend's personality. And how much you enjoy being around them.
Yes.
Not their ability to make you laugh.
Got it. Okay, so we're going beyond single words now and into phrases.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind is look forward to versus wait for.
Okay.
I've seen those used interchangeably.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that's not quite right.
You are correct.
Yeah.
They are not interchangeable.
Okay.
Wait for is just about being passive.
Right.
While time passes.
Yeah.
Like I'm waiting for the bus.
Right.
But look forward to conveys excitement and anticipation
Okay.
about something that's coming.
Yeah.
So you would say, I'm looking forward to my vacation.
So wait for is more neutral, but look forward to is more positive.
Right.
And hopeful.
Like you're already picturing yourself on that vacation.
Yeah.
Sipping a tropical drink on the beach.
I love that. Okay, let's unpack another potentially confusing phrase, used to versus be used to. I know these both involve past habits, but it's the usage that trips me up.
Used to is for describing something you did regularly in the past, but you no longer do it.
Yeah, right.
Like I used to play the piano, but I haven't played in years.
Okay.
And it's always followed by the base form of the verb.
So used to implies that like that action or state is finished.
Exactly. Now, be used to means being accustomed to something.
Right.
It's about familiarity or comfort with a situation.
Okay.
So you would say, I'm used to living in a big city.
Yeah.
The noise doesn't bother me.
And be used to is followed by a noun.
Yes.
Or a gerund, like living.
Yes. That's an important distinction. to keep in mind.
It all makes so much more sense now that we're breaking it down. Okay, next up we have make versus do.
Oh, yeah.
These seem pretty interchangeable at times, but I know there are like rules.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Generally, make is used for creating or constructing something that's tangible. Like you make a cake or you make a sculpture, or you make a plan.
Yeah.
But do is used for actions work or general activities.
Okay.
So you do your homework, you do the laundry, you do a good job.
And there's also all those fixed expressions. That can be tricky.
Those collocations are important to learn and practice.
Yeah.
And they're often where English learners make mistakes.
Right.
Because they don't translate directly from other languages.
Okay, here's a word pair I remember struggling with back in school.
Oh.
Affect versus affect.
Oh, yeah.
They sound almost identical.
They do sound very similar, but they have distinct meanings.
Okay.
So affect is usually a verb,
Yeah.
and it means to influence or produce a change in something.
Yeah.
Like the weather can affect my mood.
But affect is usually a noun,
Uh-huh.
referring to the result of a change.
Yeah.
So the special effects in that movie were amazing.
You got it. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky.
Okay.
Affect can also be a verb.
Oh.
But it's less common.
Right.
And it has a slightly different meaning.
Okay.
It means to bring something about or to cause something to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Like the new policy affected positive change in the community.
So it's almost like affect is about the influence.
Yeah. And effect is about the outcome.
That's a great way to think about it. Focusing on that cause and effect relationship can really help you remember which word to use.
This is making me realize that there are so many layers to the English language.
Yeah.
I feel like we're peeling back those layers.
I love that analogy. It's like we're on an archaeological dig, carefully excavating the intricacies of English.
Okay, are you ready to unearth some more?
I'm always ready.
Common English-speaking mistakes.
From a good linguistic adventure.
I'm sure our listeners are eager to uncover even more.
Let's continue our deep dive.
Linguistic treasures.
And see what other gems we can find.
Welcome back. We're wrapping up our deep dive into these common English-speaking mistakes, and it's amazing how many little subtleties there are.
It really is.
In the English language.
Sometimes those subtleties are all about, like, direction.
Uh-huh.
Which brings us to our next word pair. Bring versus take.
Ah, yes, another classic mix-up.
Yeah.
It seems simple, but I can see how it would be confusing. The key is to think about the movement in relation to the speaker.
Okay.
So bring implies movement toward the speaker.
Right.
Or to a specific location.
Okay.
While take signifies movement away from the speaker or a location.
So if I were to say, please bring me that book, I would be asking for the book to be moved towards me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you were to say, I'm going to take this book to the library,
Right.
You'd be indicating movement away from your current location.
It's like we have a mental map in our minds.
Yes.
And bring is leading towards a destination, and take is leading away from.
That's a great way to think about it. It's all about perspective and direction.
Okay, let's move on to another pair that often causes confusion, fewer versus less.
Oh, yeah.
I think even native speakers get this one wrong sometimes.
They do. And it's understandable, because the rules seem simple, but then it gets kind of tricky in practice.
Right.
The basic principle is fewer is for countable nouns.
Okay.
Things you can individually count, like apples, cars, or dollars.
Yeah.
But less is used for uncountable nouns. Things you can't individually count.
Right.
Like water time or money as a concept.
So if I were baking cookies, I would say I have fewer cookies than I thought because I can count each individual cookie.
Yeah.
But if I were measuring out the milk for the recipe, I would say I have less milk than I need.
Perfect example. You got it.
Now, what about those collective nouns that can be tricky, like money?
Right.
It seems countable in some contexts.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier that we would say less money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While you can count like individual dollars or coins, the word money itself refers to that general concept of currency, which is uncountable.
Okay.
So we say, I have less money than I thought, not fewer monies.
Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here. It's like fewer is for the items and less is for the quantities or amounts.
Exactly. It's a subtle distinction, but once you understand it,
yeah,
it becomes much easier.
Okay, are you ready for another word pair?
I think so. What do we got?
Hear versus listen.
These words are both about perceiving sound.
Yeah.
But there's a subtle difference in how we use them.
Okay.
So hear is simply the act of sound waves reaching your ears.
Right.
It's passive and involuntary.
Yeah.
Like, I hear the birds singing outside.
Okay.
But listen is an active and conscious choice to pay attention to a sound.
Yeah.
It implies focus and intent.
Okay.
Like, I'm listening to my favorite podcast.
So I might hear the traffic outside my window, but I wouldn't be listening to it.
Exactly. It's the difference between just perceiving a sound and actually actively engaging with it.
It's like, hear is about awareness and listen is about intention.
That's a great way to put it. You really captured the essence of that.
I feel pretty confident about my word choices now. But we're not done yet, are we?
Not yet. There are more?
More word pairs.
Word pairs to tackle historic versus historical.
Oh, okay.
Both are related to history, but they have slightly different connotations.
Okay, let's unpack that. So historic, I know, is for something really significant.
Exactly.
Just happened in the past.
It signifies importance and like a lasting impact on history.
Yeah.
So like the signing of the Declaration of Independence was a historic event.
But historical just means related to history in general.
Exactly.
Like a historical novel doesn't have to be about a major event. It just has to be set in the past.
Exactly.
Okay, I think I've got that one figured out. Now, what about classic versus classical? I feel like I mix those up sometimes.
This is another pair that's easy to confuse.
Yeah.
So classic generally refers to something that's timeless and enduring and widely admired.
Okay.
Like that car is a classic, or that book is a classic piece of literature.
But classical is more specific. Like it refers to the arts and culture of ancient Greece and Rome, or to like traditional styles of music and art.
Exactly. So we talk about classical music or classical architecture or classical mythology.
Yeah.
But we refer to a classic movie or a classic song or a classic car.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
I know, right?
I feel like I learned so many useful tips.
Me too.
Yeah.
And remember, the key to mastering any language is practice and continuous learning.
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid to make mistakes along the way.
Exactly.
They're all part of the process.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
Through all these nuances of the English language, and to all our listeners out there, keep those ears open, those minds engaged, and those words flowing. Until next time.